Okay, doke. Excellent, folks. So, yeah, four things that a great manager does. I'm going to go really fast, as I did last time. There's a lot to cover, and I'm going to go quite fast over this. So my recommendation would be take notes and then almost self-assess where you are. In terms of the things that I'm going to cover, maybe just make a note and say, actually, to what extent am I doing these things in my team, in my business? Um, so that you can start to lay out a bit of a pathway um, for what you need to what you need to do. Now you're not going to be able to implement everything straight away, but at least it gives you a bit of a pathway to say, right, here are some of the things I choose to work on over the course of the kind of weeks and months. Okay, so that's the way I would suggest that we do it. But before we get into the guts of what I wanted to share, I just thought I'm going to share with you this thing here called the Gallup 12. Has anyone ever heard of the Gallup 12 or the Gallup organization? Nope. Okay, so I think this kind of goes through everything that we do as leaders and managers. So if we want to kind of just create the best possible team, I think it's a fundamental that we know this thing here. So the Gallup organization conducted a really important study ages ago across hundreds of thousands of employees, tens of thousands of companies, and really came up with a framework which is now, well, was up until lately called the Gallup 12, and it's now the Gallup 12 Plus because they actually added four things onto it just literally quite recently after COVID. And the question that the organization was seeking to address was, what do we need to do to attract, to motivate, and retain the best people in our industry? That was the question that they were addressing. And through the research, where they arrived at was, look, there are initially 12 key questions that need to be addressed, and almost in a sequential order that says question one's the first and most important one, then question two, then question three, and so on. And I'm going to just flash you through these so you know this. And again, it sort of sets the tone a little bit for what I'll cover as well a little bit after that. So the very first question that our team members need to be asking or addressing is, look, do I know what's expected of me at work? Right. The one thing that causes a whole heap of stress amongst team members is a thing called role ambiguity, which basically says, I don't know what my manager expects of me. So the fairest thing that we can possibly do is actually to kind of set out clear levels of expectation for people. That's point one. Point two then is, do I have the materials and equipment that I need to do my work right? So once you've actually set the expectation of here's what we want you to do, well, you got to give people the tools to do the job. There's no point actually asking a salesperson to make lots of phone calls if you don't give them access to a phone. I mean, I know I'm being stupid, but that's really what it means. Another good example that I always use, in fact, I had this conversation literally with a client yesterday, would you believe? I don't know if you're all familiar with kind of operating with dual screens, right? But isn't that revolutionary when you get dual screens? Now, this person or another team are operating off single screens at the moment, yet they're flicking between Excel spreadsheets. Now, frankly, I think that it's a massive productivity saver to have two screens. Now, for that person, I would suggest that maybe there's an opportunity for them to give better materials and equipment for people to do their job more productively. Okay, so again, that's it's a real basic, isn't it? Then at work, do I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day? So actually, am I a round peg in a square hole, or actually am I actually in the right role? Really important, because you can imagine the stress that's caused when actually I'm being asked to do something I'm just not very good at and I don't enjoy. In the last 7 days, have I received recognition or praise for doing good work? Again, so think about it this way as a manager, actually, to what extent have you been able to take the time to actually sit down with someone and just say, look, bloody good job, well done. I noticed what you did there, excellent. Or I'm really noticing the progress that you're making. Things like that go a long, long way with people. Now, but the absence of that, well, people just think, well, I'm not valued here. All right. my supervisor or someone at work seems to care about me as a person. So I'm not just a cog in a big machine. Actually, some people take the time out to really say, okay, what's going on in your life? How's the family? What else is happening around? Because work is only a subset of life. And I think those people who actually take the time to invest in their team in that way clearly benefit. And then, of course, is there someone at work who encourages my development? Right? Again, we're going. One of the things that we touched on last session was this idea of a good manager, a good leader, a good coach is someone who actually nurtures people, who helps them to grow. And again, that's what we're looking for. If we want to, again, always go back to if you've ever got a question around why are these questions relevant, just say, look, the key question that we're trying to address is what do we need to do to attract, motivate, retain the best people in our industry? So if we do all these things, we're certainly making good strides towards that goal. At work, do my opinions seem to count? Or am I told, listen, shut up, get on with it, just do it that way? Or actually, is there an opportunity for me to say, look, I see a different way of doing things? Right? So this idea of being listened, understood, and heard is really important. The mission or purpose of my company makes me feel my job is important. So, look, what are you actually trying to do? What's all this for? And allowing people to connect with a bigger purpose in their role is so important. So this idea of constantly communicating, like, this is why we're doing this. This is what we're striving for. This is what we stand for. This is why your job's important. And of course, the people around me, so my associates and fellow employees, are committed to doing quality work. Because actually, if you're committed to doing quality work, yet you see other people around you who seem to be kind of just shipping out kind of half-hearted efforts and sloppy work, well, guess what? What's going to happen? You're going to leave. That's what's going to happen, because it's like, no, I can't tolerate this if everyone else around me doesn't care as much as I do. And again, as a manager, how do we make sure that we're setting the standard and making sure people are always rising up to the standards that we're shooting for? Otherwise, we're going to be letting someone down somewhere else in the team. I have a best friend at work. This is always a funny one. People say, why is that important? Think about it. If you want to kind of ultimately motivate and retain good people, the fact that if people have got good close connections with their fellow team members, it's really helpful. The example I would give personally here is my wife Mary. She was 21 years an occupational therapist in the NHS. Now she left that luckily just before COVID. Can you believe the timing? But she probably was in that job a couple of years longer than she really ought to have been, because she was getting a little bit more disillusioned with kind of being further and further back from the actual patient that she was trying to help. A lot of admin and various things going on in the NHS. But guess what kept her at work? She loved the team of people that she was working in. She had friends there. So that would be my example of the importance of what are we doing to create that sense of connection? Are we building community inside and outside of work for people to get involved? 11. In the last 6 months, has someone at work talked to me about my progress? At the end of the day, everyone is striving, or certainly most people that I ever meet are always striving for more. Yeah. So actually, this idea of, are we meeting people where they're at and saying, okay, where is it you're wanting to get to? What are the steps that we might need to put in place to help you to get there? And then, have I had opportunities at work to learn and to grow? This idea of, and again, maybe the nice attitude to take here is, if you think about it, I always kind of view it as, if someone comes into my business that or any team that I've been part of, they'll probably not stay forever. My dad was a bank manager, 35 years with the Clydesdale Bank. Now those days have gone, right? People will kind of move on. But wouldn't it be nice to think actually that when people come in and then when they leave, they're a way bigger and better person and operator than when they came in. So this idea of them, you being that person that they look and say, do you know what? Maybe I have left the company, but I look back at my time there, that manager, that leader was excellent, and that environment was really, really good. that's as much, I think, as we can really expect. The longer we can hang on to people, good people, clearly the better. But we don't deserve that if we haven't done all these things below. So here we go. So these first two were all about basic needs. Okay, just addressing people's absolute basic needs. Then people are then interested in their individual contribution, about helping them to grow, and care about me, help me see my value, and know me. The next four is all about teamwork. Right? So is there pride there? Is there trust? Is this important? And do you listen to me? And of course, the last two is all about growth. Give me some challenge and let me review my contributions to the work effort. So that's really, now this is all Gallup stuff, Gallup research, fabulous stuff. And again, some real value in all of those questions. Now, that was the Gallup 12. And then, as I say, just since COVID, they actually have added on 4 more. At work, am I treated with respect? My organization seems to care about my overall well-being. I've received meaningful feedback in the last week, and my organization always delivers on the promise we make to customers. So, again, I only want to kind of share with you the first 12, not saying that the other 4 aren't important, but again, that I just wanted to share that as a thing. Go and research online. I'm happy to send you this as well. This is not this is the Gallup organization's work, but it's fabulous. So that's hopefully some nice context for kind of what we need to do as managers and leaders. But one of the things that we said at the last session 2 weeks ago was this idea of the identity that we need to hold dear to us as in whichever cap we seem to be wearing, whether it's a manager or a leader. We're not the superhero. We're not the guy or girl who can fix all the problems, who needs to do all of the work. Actually, the job done well is when we've actually adopted the people grower or people builder identity, which is my job is to recruit good people and to give them the opportunities and the support and the challenge to allow them to grow so that they can lift up. And maybe a good phrase that always rings in my head is this one called delegate to elevate. And I know that a number of you guys on the call just now will be familiar with that. It's this idea of, if I can actually delegate effectively to someone around me, then that gives them, that might be something I can do easily, but they or have responsibility for, they don't yet, but actually it gives people the stretch to say, how do you step up? So by delegating, you're elevating them up to take on bigger, fuller, more responsibilities. They grow as a person, right? So there's a benefit to that person, but guess what? There's also a benefit to you, isn't there? Because as you've effectively delegated, you've got time back. Well, you've seen people grow, which is hugely satisfying, but you've also got time back to allow you to now focus yourself on more valuable activities. Hence, you elevate what you're focusing on as well. So again, there's an awful lot in that, how you see yourself. But yeah, be a people grower. Right. So a reminder of the 9 steps that we covered last time. So again, the framework that I like to operate, and a number of you guys will be familiar with this because we are working on it, is the 9 steps to mobilizing a team. So we covered this last time, but for those who weren't on the call, the first 4 are the leadership acts, and that's what we're going to touch on, the 4 things that a leader does, to kind of really drive these steps. And again, we talk about leadership really being an act of the heart. So everything's in red here because actually it's connecting people emotionally to what it is that we're trying to do with the business. So where's this vision going? What's the North Star? What's the key purpose? How do we then, what's our mission of how do we actually make that all, how do we make strides towards that? What's the culture? Behaviorally, how do we want the team to behave on the journey towards that vision? And then we need to set some nice milestones. Okay, so look, the North Star is almost always way out there, But what we want to do is to say, okay, let's set some milestones, some goals to say, okay, by this point here, here's where we're aiming to get to. And then the next time, there's where we want to get to. So we're always making advances towards the much longer term vision. So those are the 4 steps that we'll kind of touch on shortly. And then, of course, what we covered last time was the acts of management, which is much more the logical or the brain side of things, which says once people are fully bought in to where we're going and what we're trying to do, then we just need to lay out things a bit more logically. It says, okay, the org charts, you know, who does what in this business. Okay, what specifically are we asking people to do in terms of their roles and responsibilities? So every single box on an organizational chart needs to have a really good, clear, up-to-date job description that then says, okay, that job, when done well, delivers a set of KPIs or outcomes. All right, everyone needs to know what how their role is going to be measured, and then we need systems to be able to do a role, and then we need to kind of communicate through a regular cadence or rhythm of meetings. So that we covered that last time, so I'm just not going to spend any time on that today. But of course, the outputs that we're looking to create through good leadership are people who are passionate and focused people. Right? If we do our job right, we get people who want to be here and know what we're trying to, or where we're striving to get to. And management, we said, was all about creating people who are competent and productive. I know what to do, I know how to do it, and I know the quantity and quality of what's expected. Great, that's what we want. Now, you've got to have both. You can't just say, oh, I'll focus on being a good leader, because there's no point in getting people excited about being here and saying, right, I'm up for it. What do you want me to do? And then saying, oh, I've got none of the management side of it. Because then you'll just have a really excited person who hasn't a clue. But equally, on the other side, you can't just be the manager that focuses on the logical stuff, because guess what? You're going to then have people who, they know what to do, they know how to do it, but their heart's not in it. What am I here for? So again, the really effective person has that management and leadership ability. So what are the 4 things on leadership? And we'll just kind of walk through these. And I think we'll hopefully have some time. Maybe again, please come off and ask any questions or any points that are resonating with you. But we might have time at the end as well for a bit more of a conversation. But 4 things a leader does is enrolls the right people into the business. All right. How do we get people on board? Again, and you look at the spaceman in the background there. What's the story about when JFK went to one of the space centers in NASA during the space race? Do you remember this story? And he came across a chap in the corridor and said, "Okay, what's your job here?" And the response was, "My job, Mr. President, is to put man safely on the moon and return back to Earth." That was the response. Now that person was the janitor, right? He was so bought into what the purpose of the whole thing was. Now, you could say, well, his job was a more menial thing of keeping things clean. No, he was part of that whole thing, right? So enrolled into a real purpose. He got the right kind of people. Then it's about inspiring as well. Inspiring people while you're here to act in the right way. I'll come on to that. We need to communicate effectively, and as a manager, as a leader, we really need to be making sure that our communication is effective. And ultimately, the way I like to say this is, how do we move people forward and upward, right, with our communication? Always about forward and upward. A lot of communication can send people backwards and down, okay? And I'll explain that shortly. And then look, congratulate. A good leader congratulates or creates an environment where people are rewarded, they're recognized for doing the right kind of things, where they're encouraged to kind of to take some risks, to actually try and fail, but ultimately to move forwards. And we'll cover each of these in turn now. So yeah, So there we go. Enroll, getting the right people on the bus. That's a phrase that you've probably heard before. How do we get the right people on the bus so that when we're on the journey, we're amongst kind of like-minded people? So one of the things that's critically important for us as leaders to do is to say, look, how do we share that vision and purpose? Right? That was kind of point one on the 9 steps, wasn't it? Okay, what are we trying to do? So with NASA, it was about putting man on the moon and returning safely to Earth. So again, I'll share something, some examples of this in a second. The second is, right, okay, so cool, I'm bought into the idea of where we're going and what we're trying to do. Let's now kind of lay out, well, what's the strategy? You know, how are we going to get there? So again, it's absolutely essential that we then start to share that and communicate that strategy regularly and often to our team members. And then this idea of one team, what do I mean by one team? Well, quite simply, look, as your business grows, you're going to have lots of different teams or departments. And the last thing that we want to have is this thing called, a silo, right? Where everyone's operating just in the interests of the one team that they are part of. No. Much more important is that we say, look, we've got to win together. We cross the line together. So the idea of the leader has to always break down any kind of internal kind of squabbles and say, no, this is about us as a team. What's right for the business, not what's right for the individual or the individual team. Okay, because what we're trying to do here is we're wanting to make sure that people are passionate and they're not just passive bystanders or kind of passengers on the boat, so to speak, or on the bus. We want them to be up there and really kind of contributing passionately. So this is a little example again of this is the action coach detail. So from a vision and purpose point of view, it was really clear to me on day one when I went to Las Vegas for training, which actually, by sheer coincidence of us doing this now, was pretty much 10 years ago, pretty much 10 years to the day. I was in Las Vegas, and on day one, the leader of the business, a guy called Brad Sugars, who some of you know, he took us through for pretty much the whole day the vision and purpose of Action Coach. It was amazing. Spent so long talking this through, and ultimately he said, like, our purpose is ultimately to help owners of businesses create a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without them. Okay, because look, being in business should give you more life. Very clear on that. Right? A lot of people get sucked into it's work, and actually you miss everything else. But no, wait a minute. How do we get a business that's running really well such that, everyone's enjoying themselves, making good money, and all the rest of it being fulfilled, and actually you've got other things that you want to do in your life with your family and the people that you love most and things that you care about. Right? That's really what it's all about. Now, the vision that Brad articulated almost 30 years ago now was world abundance through business re-education. Now it's 5 words. What the hell does that mean? But I remember Brad spending what seemed at the time thinking, this guy has managed to kind of fill a morning talking about 5 words. He explained, look, why the world? Why am I interested in the world and not just kind of, Brisbane, which is where he grew up? Why has he got that kind of global ambition? What does abundance mean? Well, the opposite of that, of course, is scarcity. But he talked about the more that we can help businesses grow, the more that we can help businesses employ people. When employment goes up, you get a kind of this positive circular effect in the economy, and it keeps growing that way. So he talked passionately, and as I listened to him, thinking, I like this. This is what I'm all about. I want this. It's not about kind of fighting people for stuff and in a scarcity mode. It's like, no. There's plenty out there. Business, he said, I'm clear on business. I wanted to focus on business. I could focus on sport. We could focus on government or council or charity or business. That was our marketplace. And then re-education, again, his point there was around a lot of most people get into business because they've been employed by someone and then think, you know what, I think I could do this better myself and move into business. And guess what? With no formal business education, they start doing their thing. Now, actually, there's some great businesses being built there, but there's an awful lot of businesses that are doing some things wrong. And sometimes we need to just recognize we've got some things wrong. We need to unlearn the wrong stuff and relearn the new stuff, and then the business kind of can get better. And again, now the fact that I'm sharing this with you, this is how I interpreted, how I remembered everything that Brad talked about back then, and that then kind of flows through the business or the coaching team over the last 10 years. So I'm really passionate about that vision. It makes sense. So now, if I were to skip over this right now, you'd say Alan's not really bought into what you're trying to do, but I am. So again, the question maybe to ask yourself is, are your team members, are they locked into what it is you're trying to do, and could they talk passionately about it to other people? And then, of course, we laid out the mission. And again, I'm not going to go through all that just now, but fundamentally, it just defines who are we, what's the business that we're in, who are our clients, and what is it that makes us different. So getting clear on that early on has been really helpful to then harness people's energies as a team. And then another example in terms of laying out a bit more of a one-page plan. And I know that I've got a number of people on the call who have used this very well. Now, this was an example from British Judo. You can say, well, what the heck's British Judo got to do with anything? Well, it's got nothing or everything. What they did clearly was they laid out a corporate strategy. And what I love about this is, and don't worry about reading the detail. I can send you the slides afterwards. You can read it. But what they were really good at is they had their North Star, their vision. What are they trying to do? They then said, okay, what's the mission? How do we actually achieve the vision? Underpinning that is, what are the four objectives that they, the three objectives that they said we must achieve these things on the journey. So everything's a subset of the bigger purpose. They then got clear on, look, there's 5 key strategies. 5 key strategies that we need to spend our time and attention on that will help us achieve the objectives. And under the strategies, there's a number of tactics that the team then have to then start to get focused on and start to deliver. And all of that, of course, is underpinned by the values. So it's a beautiful, for me, it's a beautiful laydown of the overall thing. But can you imagine the benefit of having something like that you can take the team through, but then also keep referring to? That's always the kind of the one version of the truth. If ever you've got questions, okay, let's go back to what we're trying to achieve here. What did we say? Nice way of always reorientating ourselves onto where we're trying to go and how we said we're going to do it. Okay. I then said to inspire. It's our job as leaders to inspire people by creating the right kind of environment. And of course, the phrase used, I think it was Peter Drucker that said it, was culture eats strategy for breakfast. This idea of actually, if you've got the right people thinking the right way, acting like a team, you can actually make good an average plan or strategy. But if you've got a great strategy, but a team full of backstabbers and individual contributors instead of team players, the chances are that strategy ain't going to happen. So the rock and the sponge, of course, in the background, that comes straight from Sir Clive Woodward, who led the English rugby team to World Cup success back in, was it the early 2000s? And what he talked about was, he said, look, it's really important that what we have in this team are sponges, not rocks. Now, what does that mean? Now, he was saying it in his language back then, but kind of since then, what you might be more familiar with is this idea of growth and fixed mindset. What he was saying was the sponges are, sorry, the rocks, I should say, is the fixed mindset. Those people in the team who are impenetrable, who actually are, it's always been done this way. This is the way we've done it for years, or actually, look, I'm just not good at that. A good example actually is kids, right? The kid who goes into class into maths class and says, I'm no good at maths, right? Now that would be an example of a fixed mindset because they think they're not good at maths. Now, what do you think that statement said out loud or even just said in my head does to my ability to kind of be good at maths? Right? It'll totally close down any opportunity there is to learn. Right? That's a fixed mindset. If you look to the sponges, right, the opposite of that, the school kid who says I'm not good at maths. Oh, can you hear me, folks? My headphones just went off there. Yeah, the opposite of that, the kid with the growth mindset is the one who says, I'm not good at maths, ... yet. What do you think the importance of that is? ... yet. Right? It opens up the opportunity to say, I'm maybe not good at it yet, but I could get better. Hugely important, kind of opening the mind as opposed to the closing of the mind. And that's really what Clive Woodward was saying. I want people who say, look, we know how the game's been played before, but could we do it a little bit differently? What if we did it this way? You know, come up with some ideas. That's what he was really trying to instill. So he said, look, I need to get rid of the rocks and attract the sponges and encourage the sponges. So values are critically important. And again, a lot of people kind of almost dismiss values as being, oh, it's just that nice fluffy stuff that's kind of written on the wall and on a mouse mat. No, that's when values are done badly. Values that are really well done, that really create the culture, massive. Come on to a couple of examples. In fact, I might even you might even recognize the examples I'm going to give you. I've just touched on the growth mindset, that encouragement of, okay, let's be open. Let's be open. Let's take on challenges. It's okay to fail. You know, the acronym of FAIL, FAIL, first attempt in learning. Right? Now, imagine being a leader, but saying, no, it's okay, give it a go. Look, you might well fail the first time, but that's okay. Come back to me and tell me what the learning is and what you do differently next time so that it's better the next time. Think about that as an encouraging environment. Yeah, that's what we need to be fostering. And then a climate of candor, right? To speak candidly with one another. Again, I want to just share a bit of detail on that in a second. But ultimately, what we're trying to get to is we want to get people from being, rather than just turning up at work transactionally, as in, I'm just here to pick up the wage packet and then go. Actually, we want to create people say, do you know what? I actually really like being here. Right? I feel as if people are we're all on the same page and we're doing things together. As a band of brothers or sisters, we're trying to kind of move on. That's what we really want to get to. And look, here's an example. You've seen this before, I'm sure, but Nike. Was it Phil Knight at Nike? He kind of very early on in the Nike journey, he just started to lay down the manifesto that just says, look, here's what it's like at Nike. This is what to expect. Here's our values. And again, you can read them for yourself. But he really kind of said, if this is the kind of place that you want to be in, then come on in. But actually be clear, this is what it's like, this is what's expected. And if it's not for you, fine, go and work for Reebok or someone else. So I love kind of when you see nice, simple examples like that. But I'm also going to give a bit of a shout out. Stephen and Connor, you guys are on the call. And I think this is a fabulous piece of work that you did around just creating a really good, tight set of values, which again, the team have all contributed to. And again, without going through it all, you can see that the guys got very clear on almost the 5 key values. We're very clear on what each of those values means. Now, importantly, we're very clear on, look, that what are the right behaviors that we could actually see people doing that would demonstrate the value being upheld. And also, when we see these things down here, that's almost contravening the actual value. That's going against what the value intends us to do. So again, it becomes a really, really clear document. Imagine anyone joining the team. Right, saying, look, want to be really clear with you. Here's here's how we'll win in this particular business. And again, it follows the above and below the line type mentality, but really clear. No one is under any illusions as to kind of what's expected from a behavioral point of view in this business. You know, fabulous work. So again, guys, I know you don't mind me sharing that, but it's a really good piece of work. And then finally, I said, you know, this idea of candor, to speak candidly with people. Right? So Frank Dick shared this with me. He was the coach to all of the greats back in my kind of early days. So Boris Becker and Sebastian Coe and Daley Thompson. Do you remember those names? Well, he was the coach. Now we're fortunate enough to be coached by him on a regular basis at Action Coach. But he talks about if you want to have a winning team, talk with and create a culture of candor. And what he's saying there is to say, look, candor is about honesty. Be honest with people. He says, because when you're honest with people, when you are straight talking with people, what does that create? Trust. Right? No one wants the opposite. We'll come on to what the opposite is, but speak honestly, truthfully, and very candidly. And it gets trust and respect. And also, candor is about holding people to account. Okay, have you done what you said you're going to do? It's accountability, because what that will lead to is respect. And as a leader, isn't that what we want? We want to have people who trust us and respect us. Do it through candor. Because think of the opposite. Again, it's not hard to know what the opposite is, but the opposite of honesty is dishonesty or a lack of honesty. And what does that lead to? Well, a lack of trust. When you've got a lack of trust, no one's going to do anything for you or with you. And again, when you shy away from holding people to account, okay, this is what we said we'd do. How have you got on? Right? And again, accountability, say, okay, right, all right, so well done, you've done what you said you're going to do, excellent. Or, oh, we're off the pace. Okay, come on, we need to get that back on track. How do we get that back on track? Don't let people off if it's the right thing ultimately to do. But lack of accountability, well, flipping heck, what does that lead to? Ultimately, a lack of respect. People start taking the mick. Oh, he never holds me to account, or she never holds me to account anyway, so what's the point? Well, I'll just coast. Wow. So this idea of it now, what's easier? This is like above and below the line, folks. Right? It's much easier to do this. It's the path of least resistance. Oh, I'll hold back on that tough feedback I need to give someone, right? Or, oh, I'm scared to kind of really call them out on something that they've not done, right? It's easy to do that because you're not doing anything. It's much harder to kind of go above the line or to be honest, to kind of to be accountable. But that's where performance lies. Is this bit here? So it's a choice. Like everything's a choice. And look, there's a right and a wrong choice, frankly, in this one. All right. And then communicate. This is the third thing that we said. A good leader communicates well. And again, the rule of 7. What's the rule of 7? I think Jack Welch said this one, the CEO of the century as he was billed at the time, with General Electric. And he said, look, the rule of 7 is keep communicating. You know, people will only start listening and starting to understand what you're saying when you've communicated it 7 times. So if you think about it, if you think, you know, and again, I'm sure you've said it before, I'm sure I've said it before as well, this idea of, like, I've told them once, I've told them twice. Well done. You've got another 5 times to go before they even start listening. So keep going with the message. And look, Brad Sugar said to me, he says, Alan, he says, never apologize for repeating stuff to your clients. Right? I know that some of you guys will have heard this stuff probably a number of times from me before. And what he said was, he says, never apologize for repeating stuff. He says, you know, you can stop or lessen the repetition when people start doing the stuff that you've been saying. All right, so keep repeating. So there's Nelson Mandela in the background. Okay, what a role model he was, for people. And he talks about his father. He talks about his father, who was a village elder or a village is that the right word? A village tribal leader. And he talked about kind of the effect that that man had on his life and how he conducted himself. And I guess, you know, we just need to think about ourselves as like, what's the legacy you want to leave? Do you want to be that person? And I hope you do, that just says for people to look back and say, wow, I loved the way that they went about doing things. Right? They did it with truth, with candor, with integrity. You know, they were passionate. Who's that? Or are you the mood zapper, or are you the mood sapper? I know which one you'll want to be. What's your influence? There you go. It's similar. I've just built on that point already. But what's your influence? I'll come on to that in a second. Right? Because actually, what you say or do as a leader, or what you don't say or don't do as a leader, can have a massive impact on what people in your team then go on to do. And then obviously we need to have this rhythm. We mentioned that actually in management as well, but the communication rhythm of how do we kind of make sure that we've got a good flow of communication within the team, hugely important. Because again, what we're trying to do here through good communication is the removal of any ambiguity, and we want to help people become focused and clear. That's what we're really ultimately trying to do. So again, influence. We talked about watching your influence, and I think this was just worthwhile sharing. Is you know, as a leader, when should you be speaking first in a group? When you've got your team together, when is it important for you to speak first? Because I'm also going to say when should you speak last. So again, Simon Sinek, and I've taken this from Simon Sinek and also from Patrick Lencioni. Patrick Lencioni says, look, the leader should speak first when we need to establish or build trust in the team, to help to create a climate of openness, and to demonstrate a level of vulnerability. So for example, if I'm a leader and I'm asking for feedback, or look, what's going wrong in the business right now, right? Actually, depending on the kind of the context of the environment you've created prior to that question, people might say, I'm not saying anything, because if I say anything, my neck's on the line, or I'm going to get it, right? But actually, if we as a leader say things like, look, I've personally been really struggling with this, and I think I've made an error in a couple of areas, right? I think I could have done differently, or I've miscommunicated, right? Imagine doing that, leading first in that way. Then people say, all right, well, if he's saying that, then I'll say it too. But if the leader is that person that just says, right, answer to me, what's gone wrong, right? You know, the stiff kind of lead, flipping heck, I'm not saying much. So it's important that you create an environment by kind of demonstrating, look, where you might have had a struggle. Some of the things that are going on just now in terms of social media, people are being much more communicative about mental health and kind of saying, okay, here's some of the struggles that I'm having. Well, actually, people tend to walk towards a vulnerability to say, okay, how can I help? Or, oh, actually, I can identify with that. Okay, really important to recognize that. But also, it's not always essential, right for you to speak first. Sometimes it's important to speak last. Why? Okay, because if you advocate a point right up front, you might have killed anyone's ability to actually kind of come back with a different opinion. They'll say, well, if that's what the boss thinks, then I'm just going to kind of button my lip. But actually, if you're genuinely asking people for some ideas, give us your thoughts, give me your perspective. What insight have you got? Okay, give us some feedback. Then it's much better to just kind of genuinely ask it and shut up and listen. Okay, I don't want to say that this is what I think we should do, this has happened, this is what I think we should do. No, ask the group, listen to everyone, and that's probably a far better way to lead, so that people can. What's the answer? What's the thing? If people, even though you've got an idea in your head, if someone else says it, right, they'll own it better. If I told you to do something and you thought you were going to do it anyway, right, or you'll think, well, that's Alan just telling me to do it. But if you've come up with it and I've said, what a great idea, how could you do that? And you start to then cement it in your own mind as to what you'll do, you own that way more than if you're being instructed. So it's, again, that would be an example of what I mean by what's your influence there, because yeah, there's a timing thing. Communication rhythm was the other thing that I wanted to kind of cover. And again, I saw this on LinkedIn a little while ago, and I thought it was excellent actually. And it was this idea of what are the different forums that you need to have in your business in order that people have the right information at the right kind of times. So I want to just literally throw this up for you just now. And again, you can get the slides and you go through, or we can talk in more detail in sessions. But this idea of everyone needs a status update, right? Everyone deserves and needs a one-to-one. We need team meetings as well, where we get everyone together. We need to have opportunity for review and the Friday wins. Okay, and really, what hopefully we're laying down here is, the status update is all about accountability. Okay, which is how do we review progress, get aligned, share any blocks. Right. In order for us to have an effective stats update, the key is preparation. Come to the meeting with the right kind of information. All right, nice report and your key metrics. Right, that's essential. We have to have that. One-to-one is all about performance of the team, of the individual. Chance to reflect, identify improvers, and get clear on priorities. Right now, the key to this, to having this, is self-restraint. So this idea of rather impose your views, how do we coach that out of your team members? The team is all about transparency, right? We'd have team meetings so that people are clear. Hopefully that's clear already with what I've been sharing with you so far. But again, what are the right things to update the team on? What are the key announcements? And again, this constant realigning to the mission and the strategy, right? The rule of 7. And the key bit here is curation. Now, what do we mean by that? Is look, a lot of team meetings are just filled with, all right, we'll just chuck everything at the team. We need to get everything communicated. But actually, it's this idea of, look, making sure that we say, what's the most important thing or things that we need to communicate in this forum to the team? Otherwise, we'll just bombard them with too much stuff. The review is all about feedback. Okay, again, what's going well? What didn't go well? What can we improve? And this is about being empathetic. All right, getting alongside someone so that we understand. And again, people, one of the things in the Gallup survey there, people need to be kind of be heard, for their opinions to be acknowledged. And again, it's all about making sure that we've given people that opportunity to really kind of have a good, honest, and fear-free opportunity to share. And then, of course, recognition is the biggest driver of human behavior. So again, recognition is critical, where we can gather the team, positively share something that can inspire others. And really, we just need to make sure that we're constantly on the scan for what can we be grateful for? What do we notice that people have done well? Again, I like that one. Gratitude's the antidote for negative emotions. It's impossible to be grateful and depressed at the same time. So again, those are just 5 kind of forums that, when done like that, if we've got that kind of rhythm in our business, then we're doing the right things to communicate. And finally, congratulate. Right? So there you go. We've all been kids, I know that, and hopefully, quite a lot of us, I'm sure, have got kids. But this idea of you can relate to the picture. Yeah. What do you do? What do you do when your kid can't walk but is just learning to walk? When they kind of get up and then fall down straight away, you don't beat them up or say, you idiot, right? You're constantly looking for what is it that you're, well done, you're making progress. So how do we nurture that people builder environment? So again, we've got to encourage a bit of risk taking and failure. I said it earlier on. Give it a go. Go on. It's the only way you'll learn, is to step outside the comfort zone, take on something that you maybe haven't done before. Just give that a try. It's all right, And again, as a leader, you want to create that bit that says, look, Don't give people something that's a risky thing that if it fails, it knackers the business. That's just stupidity. But let them kind of just incrementally step out of their comfort zone and say, look, it doesn't matter. Nothing bad's going to happen ultimately. If you feel it's recoverable, give it a go. Right? People will really, really thrive in that kind of environment where they're given the opportunity and there's almost a safety net under them. Says, look, I'll be here to help you. Reward and recognition, formal and informal. The formal stuff is the stuff that, the employee of the month or the trophy for the most successful sales, but whatever it might be. Yeah, good. Absolutely do those nice formal things. But you know what? The little voice note on WhatsApp, the little pat on the back, the little everyone in the office, stop for a second. Has everyone just listened to what Sheila's done over there? Awesome. That was amazing. Little things like that, taking the opportunity to say, catching people doing things right. Hugely important. Oops. How do we encourage personal bests? One of the things that Action Coach does particularly well is every 2 weeks we have an update, and then every month we have personal bests. So people get called out for, okay, so and so's achieved this, and Alan's achieved that. Personal bests. Always kind of saying, keep growing, keep growing. What's wrong with that? Nothing. Again, this idea of it's a winning team is a learning team, right? So how do we kind of move people from this idea of fail, first attempt in learning? It's not failure; it's all about how you learn. So I believe, I believe that a good leader gives perspective, and this was from Stephen Bartlett. He Diary of a CEO. He said sometimes today looks like that. But you have to kind of help people to stand back and say, wait a second, let's take a bigger picture view here. Yes, that's how it feels right now, but look at the progress. That's where you've come from. That's where you are now. This is just a blip. You'll move on. Or that's where we are as a business. We go through tough times as well as the good times. So perspective's really important. And this idea here of how do you help people to kind of make progress? Look, my coach, Rob, said to me a good number of years ago, he says, just remember, Alan, and I'm doing this now, you teach perfection, you coach progress, right? So what I'm laying out for you now is, look, if you were to go out and do all of these things right now, that's perfection. You'd be doing a fabulous job. Are you all there yet? Of course you're not. You're doing well on some, not on others, but fine. If you take your notes and say, okay, I could probably do a little bit better here, amazing. Keep going with that kind of attitude, and over time you get to the perfect outcome. And as I said, how do you move people forwards and upwards? All of our communication is about that. I don't want to kind of take people, oh, remember when you did that? This is what you did there. This is all the things that you did wrong. That would be an example of sending people back and down. People just feel crap about that, as opposed to saying, okay, look, okay, what can you learn, right? And what would you do? What would you do to kind of avoid that the next time or make it better? Right? It's much more forward thinking, and that's really how the conversation should always be tipped. And again, be careful what you praise. So again, this idea of it's really easy to say to the kids. I mean, the kids are about to go into the exam time, aren't they? Oh, you're so clever. Well, actually, as well-intentioned as that comment is, it's not the right thing to say, because actually it's like, well, I can't really do much with that. Rather, a growth mindseted way of saying it would be, look, I love your hunger to learn. You've been really diligent. The way you've studied is so. Listen, I cannot fault you for the study. Keep going. You're doing the right stuff, right? And maybe a good way of saying this is, Freya, my daughter's a diver at the Commonwealth Pool in Edinburgh. A little girl throwing herself off a 10-meter board. It's like definition of idiocy in my opinion, but anyway, she likes doing it. And so what happens when she wins a medal, as she's done, she's no Tom Daley, but she's winning medals. Do I say, well done on winning the gold, Freya? Which I do say, well done, but actually just remember, look, this is because of you getting up religiously at ridiculous hours in the morning, training like a mentalist, face planting from 7 meters into the water and getting up and doing it again. That's what got you the gold medal or the medal. Right? And I'd far rather spend more time on that than on the end result. So focus on the process, not the outcome. So again, just hopefully that helps. So look, I'm going to finish there. We're pretty much bang on the hour. Those are the 4 things. Enroll the good people, inspire them with the right culture, communicate regularly and effectively, and create that great environment where people are encouraged to do their best.